My name is LeBaron Moten, Chief Operations Officer for the district. And the reason why we asked you all to come here tonight is we want to talk about a capital improvement plan for Waukegan School District. I would like to acknowledge a few people in the audience right now. We have Ms. Charlotte Callahan-Wozniak, board member, and Ms. Lucy Lugazamo, board member. We also have some folks that are part of a planning committee for the district that have kind of debriefed on this process and kind of helped formulate the final plan. We have Ms. Harrison, Roz Harrison, Alicia Williams, who's the coordinator of Child Nutrition and Transportation, Gwen Polk, the Associate Superintendent for Business and Financial Services, Liz Alberon, who is our parent, one of our parent members, Otis Hickman, Director of Operations in the back there, and I believe those are all the planning committee members I see. These people meet 1 week after each meeting that we have with the community to kind of discuss some ideas that we've heard mentioned and ways that we can improve and incorporate within the plan. So just to give you a highlight and what we want to do here tonight, we have a sign-in sheet in the back so we can track attendance. And as well, we have a highlighted agenda for you to help you follow along. The agenda is going to mirror what's in the PowerPoint presentation. The capital improvement plan, a lot of people have asked, what is it? Well, this is a plan that allows us to fix stuff in the buildings. Fix and replace stuff in the buildings, simply put forward. New roofs, new lights, new floors, new toilets, new plumbing, new mechanical systems, new parking lots. That's really what it is. So the capital improvement plan, when you hear us use the term infrastructure throughout the presentation and within the documents, that's what we mean. We want to fix stuff. We want to enhance the buildings. A lot of them have original equipment that has not been enhanced in several years. Along with the agendas, for those of you who didn't see it, we also have copies of a sample of what the plan will look like specifically for Waukegan High School Brookside Campus. That is a draft of items that have been identified for this building. Okay. And this was based on several assessments that have been done throughout the district over the course of multiple years. The primary assessment a lot of these items were pulled from was a recommendation list that we got from an architect in 2016. We had a facility assessment done in conjunction with our life safety survey, our 10-year life safety survey. Okay. So just to continue on, our capital improvement plan, what that plan is, it's a multi-year plan. Building infrastructure updates throughout all school district facilities, particularly the schools. This is all capital improvements, any major equipment replacements, and also this plan allows for us to streamline finances. So something that we've done in the past in Waukegan School District 60 is we talk about capital improvements on an annual basis. We do our funding, we say this year what funding is available, what are we going to do? This allows us to forecast in the future. A lot of the building needs we have, we've already identified. We know what the issues are. You all came here to Brookside tonight. If you parked in the parking lot, you can see it needs some work, okay? So there's not too many surprises, although emergencies do occur, but this plan allows us to identify those needs, plan when they're gonna happen, and also do some financial forecasting, okay? We have an alignment for a few items within this plan that support and justify it outside physically what you see when you go into the buildings. One is the strategic plan that was developed by the school district a few years ago, Destination 2022, and you'll see under 3 main topics within the strategic plan: student achievement, institutional access, and supportive climate. We have specific items within the operations and facility area that support the need for a capital improvement plan. And I'll read off those excerpts for you. Operations, safety, and facilities will provide facilities that are conducive to learning by removing physical, health, and aesthetic barriers to student achievement. For institutional access, we have that operation, safety, and facilities will enhance the building environments to promote 21st century learning. And for supportive climate, we have operation, safety, and facilities will provide facilities that exhibit the importance of health, safety, and cleanliness. So all of these items, when we were formalizing this plan approximately 3 years ago, all the stakeholders, community members, staff, as well as the students who were involved at the time, felt that this was important and a need. So we want to support our strategic plan with this capital improvement plan. All right. Additionally, Superintendent Teresa Placencia has goals, annual goals that are important to her as well as the Board of Education. Superintendent goal number 1 for this year is a 2-part goal, with the second part being capital improvement plan. And as you can see, this is a lengthy goal, so I'll read the second part only that's in bold and underlined on the screen. The second part is the implementation and monitoring of the new long-range capital improvement plan, which identifies infrastructure improvements vital to fostering a learning environment that promotes health, safety, and cleanliness. So you have a lot of the same terminology that's in the strategic plan, but here within this goal, we've actually identified specifically a capital improvement plan, long range, that we want to implement as well as monitor. Not just create the plan, we want to implement the plan. And we believe this is the first step in that process. So, if you all have your sheets for Brookside Campus for the example, you'll notice that we have categories on the left-hand side, if you're looking at it. Now, there's a lot of items within Brookside Campus that need to be addressed. But when you look at these items on your physical document, you'll see the first item is building interior. That's item number 1. And then you'll have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on for everything within that category. And across the top of the sheet, you'll have years 1 through 10. So that's the long range piece, the 10-year. Multiple categories on the left-hand side for all the things that we need to address within the school building. So to highlight the 10 categories that you see within the sheet, and this is consistent for all schools, the first is building interior. So that's interior remodeling work that's similar to what was done at Carmen Buckner Elementary last summer, as well as Brookside Campus this past summer. The building exterior and site, that's going to be your sidewalks, your paved areas, your parking lots, your paved playground areas, and also your building envelope situations such as masonry. Mechanical systems, heating, ventilation, and cooling. It's been an initiative to add air conditioning at several of the school sites over a 5-year period, but we also have some pre-existing heating systems that have been with the buildings since they were built that need to be updated as well. So we're trying to update both at the same time. Plumbing. I referenced Carmen Buckner earlier. Plumbing was a great need there because of deteriorated domestic water piping. So plumbing, this is piping as well as fixtures, meaning your toilets, your hand sinks, etc., being updated and replaced. Fire protection systems. Those are your sprinkler systems, your heat detection systems, etc. Electrical systems. Electrical is something that we do want to emphasize, and I'm going to reference the IT department specifically because when a lot of the district facilities were built, they weren't built to support technology, whether it be computers, data servers and systems, interactive projectors. They weren't built for that. So as we update and modernize the facilities, we need to incorporate all of our electrical capacity to make sure we can support the systems we have in place. The next category is a general category under systems. An example of that might be your public announce system within a school that might be outdated and obsolete. Windows. Windows we need to update throughout the district, and we've started that initiative last year at Jack Benny Middle School. Roofing, roofing, like everything else, doesn't last forever. So that roofing with the insulation and updated codes there needs to be modified. And we're identifying locations where that is an issue for us right now. And then playgrounds and bleachers. Exterior playgrounds need to be updated. We need to be just like the playgrounds that you might see at the Park District, and the bleachers within the school, which gets used on a daily basis for multiple activities. So these are the 10 categories that we're trying to capture all of the facility needs within these categories at each school site. So something that came up at a previous meeting, planning committee meeting actually, it was suggested that we utilize Carmen Buckner and we show pictures. So as opposed to just talking about it and showing lists, we actually show pictures of the work that was done while the school was closed to the public. So you can kind of get a visual of some of the things we can talk about and incorporate within this full package. And within the Carmen Buckner photos, which I'll show you, we went from a life safety need, which was actually a critical plumbing need, to an asbestos abatement, and in the end, we had a visually stimulating environment for the staff and students when we put it all back together. All right, so this is existing just to show that at this school, all the ceilings were asbestos-containing material, and this was a critical need for us because we had plumbing issues. We had plumbing above the asbestos-containing ceilings, and whenever we had a leak, we had a fiber release with asbestos. So what we would have to do is displace a classroom for a week or two at a time to make the necessary repairs. We do have asbestos certified staff within the district, but that still doesn't mean that we didn't have to harm the classroom and vacate the classroom to do the necessary work. So what you would see when you went through Carmen Buckner was access panels throughout the hallways and in certain classrooms where we had had pipe leaks in the past. We'd have to cut an access hole, make the repair, close it up, and at the time, vacate the room. So that's the significance of this picture, to show the limitations that we had and why the project ended up being what it needed to be from a renovation, a building interior standpoint, outside of just simply plumbing. So in order to take advantage of the opportunity while the whole school was under containment, because we had to remove the ceilings, we decided we wanted to tackle all the asbestos within the school. So you'll see this gentleman is wiping down the floors. We took out the asbestos-containing flooring that was in all the classrooms and the hallways that was still present, and also any pipe insulation on any, for example, heating pipe that wasn't being replaced but was still present. Because we had access to it, we removed the insulation that it might have been asbestos containing. These are some photos of the contractor that was actually on the job site doing some of the asbestos removals. The whole school was under containment, and the asbestos abatement took approximately half of the summer, or 5 weeks, before we could do any remodel work. Yes, ma'am.
So is Carmen Buckner now totally asbestos-free, or is there some areas that still have it?
So for the building interior, it is.
So there's exterior?
You know, there might be something in the window sealant, caulking, and stuff like that. But our goal with this was to address everything within the containment area that we could. And you can see the containment. This is the main hallway by the main entrance. Before they did removals in this section. And you'll notice also, take a look at the visuals that aren't covered with plastic. The exit sign that's kind of dim at the top, but the exit sign, the speaker, the lighting, just note some of those items as we scroll through the pictures. Okay, and this is that same hallway with the ceiling removed, new copper piping for the water supply. And then this is a classroom after we were done. New floors, new ceiling, LED lighting, new fire protection system. And additionally, since this project was a full scope project that covered a lot of the 10 categories, we also updated the IT cabling throughout the school while we had the ceilings open. So that was a need, it needed to be updated. Ceilings were open, we were able to do it. And improve our IT features in the school as well. new electrical system. And then this is one of the finished hallways. So for those of you who don't know, we had a capital development board project where we did building additions at 12 elementary schools in 2013. The flooring pattern that you see with the vinyl flooring is consistent with what we did with the building additions, which is why we selected that pattern. New ceilings, new lighting, new fire protection devices, new exit signs, and then painting to pull it all together. But the most important piece of this was to update the plumbing, and that is what initiated this project. So we covered a lot of bases with this, and ultimately the learning environment is much more stimulating for the staff and students. Okay. So we're at item number 6 right now on your agenda. Some benchmarks and timelines regarding this process. So as I mentioned, we've had several surveys done. That's part of the draft documents you have now. We provided some information to the Board of Education at our Operational Services Committee meeting in February, solicited feedback in March. We will be going back to the Board of Education at a future date to provide an update and ultimately get final approval. But this is a work in progress. The Planning Committee, we want to meet a minimum of 5 times. We met initially before our first meeting with the community, which was at Lyon Magnet School. We're going to meet again next week after this meeting, and we're going to additionally meet after the meetings on May 9th and May 16th to kind of pull this whole process together. The Planning Committee meeting involves several people. We have our area superintendents, as well as principal representatives, Brookside Campus, one principal representative, Mr. Briner, Lyon Magnet School, and Jack Benny Middle School, which is also the sites where we will be having the community meetings. We have Ms. Polk, Mr. Luosa here as financial representatives, ITS representative, which is information technology, operations staff, child nutrition staff, parent representatives, board members, and the Director of Public Works, Mike Hewitt, has been invited to be on the committee and is scheduled to attend at least 2 meetings before we finish this process. Because we want this to be collaborative, we want to work as well with the city of Waukegan, because they also have plans to update a lot of their infrastructure through the city. So we want to take advantage of that where we can, wherever they are doing work. If it's near an area where we need to do work, we want to take advantage of the economies of scale and do it simultaneously if we can, if it's a point of need for us. And these are the dates of the Planning Committee meetings that have been established. We will add more meetings as necessary depending on the input from the community as well as the building leadership. The Information Technology Department has expanded over the years. We have the one-to-one technology for all of majority of our students, and we also have updated infrastructure. As I mentioned earlier, at Carmen Buckner, we updated the cabling throughout that school. A lot of schools, from an IT standpoint, need updating to support the technology, to support the interactive projectors for the student learning. So because they're integrally involved, particularly with the electrical upgrades that might be needed in the schools, we want to attend their staff meetings independently to understand their needs better. We've attended a principal meeting on April 11th. We also attended an assistant principal meeting on April 12th, the day after, to make sure they understood the intent of the plan. And with those principal meetings, this sheet that we have for Brookside Campus, we gave them all a copy of their own schools. So a draft copy of their own schools, as well as the assistant principals. And what we asked them to do is take a look at the items, identify any items that don't need to be there, add items that need to be there, and we also suggested that they speak with their ILTs, their instructional leadership teams within the schools, to add comments to this document, and then we can review it back with them regarding priority. They have this electronically as well. We shared this with them through Google so they can make modifications as they see fit, and we can see them on both sides. So they have all of this information, and we will attend another meeting with them before the process is over. They are one of the most important pieces in this process because they're in the schools every day. And then we have our 4 community meetings here, April 4th through May 16th. Today, April 25th, we're at Brookside Campus. We have 2 more meetings scheduled, May 9th at Jack Binney in the library, and May 16th at Lincoln Center in the boardroom. And if necessary, we will add additional meetings to make sure that we can, if anybody wants to physically be at the meetings and ask questions, we want to make sure we have as many people as possible. So, but these are the scheduled meetings at this time. All right. Also within our timeline, we want to provide an update to the Board of Education at the Operational Services Committee meeting on May 21st. Let them know where we are in the process. Develop a financing plan that supports this plan, this document. One of the questions that came up in our first meeting at Lyon Magnet School was, is this going to increase my taxes? That's what the community members want to know. That's not our intention with this plan. However, we do acknowledge that if we go back to the Board of Education in August and ask for them to approve this plan and dedicate the dollar amounts that go along with it, that might put a strain on our resources in the district, especially considering how we get funded. 10 years is a long time to commit to a plan like this. So we want to make sure that it is a workable plan that we can actually implement and not just sit on a shelf and collect dust. But we also have to be reasonable because we don't want to pass the burden on to the taxpayers or affect any other academic or extracurricular programs within the school district. And if that means that this 10-year plan is a physical 10-year plan with a commitment from the Board of Education for a 2-year period or a 3-year period and then reevaluation based on the financial status of the district at that time, then that's what it'll be. But at least we've identified the needs and we're committing ourselves to getting this process started. It's our goal to submit a final draft plan for discussion at the June 18th Operational Services Committee meeting. And these dates can be subject to change, especially if we add more meetings in the evenings and with the planning committee. But this is kind of the framework we're working with right now. Make final alterations as needed during the summer, and then August 13th at the board meeting, submit the final plan for school board approval. And then this is a copy of the Lyon Magnet School plan, similar to the Brookside Campus plan. We just pulled out the electrical items, the electrical section for that school. Thought it was important for those who couldn't be with us tonight, kind of get a visual of what this plan looks like. Item number 6, if you go back to the 10 plan categories, is electrical. And then we have 3 items underneath electrical. And then we have years 1 through 10 across the top, starting in year 2020. So another piece of this plan I should mention is we have fiscal year 2020. So this plan, once it's approved, won't start tomorrow. This plan, if we stick with the schedule we've provided, if it's approved on August 13th, 2019, then we're implementing year 1 for summer 2020, okay? So we're giving ourselves time to issue bids, get quotes, schedule work, schedule logistically with the schools to make sure we're not affecting summer school or any other summer activities. And the first year will be 2020, and that's going to be fiscal year 2020. And then you have the sum of totals at the bottom for this specific category. Okay, so at this time, I would like to request feedback, take questions for anybody regarding what we've discussed so far, or if you would like to see items added for this school or any other school in district that you're aware of that have been lingering issues that have become what I would call normal but aren't really normal, then now's the time, please. Yes, ma'am.
So I see you have track seating, item 1.3 for year 4, but we've already done that, right?
That's correct.
And then I see it again for year 6.
Yes, that is correct. So this is a...
Saved $1 million?
Yes, we did. So this is a draft document. These items, some of them are done, but it was important that we get the template and format appropriate and user-friendly. So the original format, a lot of these items we had, it was in an architectural format. It was not easy to follow. It had a lot of codes and numbers on it that weren't relevant to us. So the formatting was important for us to get on here. So yes, and we will save some other funds throughout this process as we update this list. One item that is also on the Lion list that we went over last time was the work that we're doing this summer because it was elevated in priority due to mechanical system issues. So even though it is on their list, it's being addressed before this plan is going to be implemented. Yes. Oh.
Two questions. My first one would be your PowerPoint presentation here. Is that something you could share with us as parents?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the parking lot, I noticed here at Brookside, it's not due till, I believe, year 8. Is that something that when the principals review it, if they determine it is something that should be a priority, will it be moved up?
Yes.
And can it be moved up much sooner than 8 years from now?
Yeah, all of these items can be moved up. And thank you for asking the question. Just to repeat what she asked. So she asked about, first, this PowerPoint presentation being shared with the parents, which we can publish when we publish the video, as well as the parking lot here at Brookside Campus. On the draft document, it's on year 8, but with collaboration with the principal and what we know based on our own needs assessment and what we've invested in making repairs over time, which is ultimately patchwork over time in the parking lot area, we will make modifications and adjustments in priority. One of the discussions we had with the principal group was not everything can be done in year 1, okay? The parking lot at Brookside Campus, and they were understanding of that. The parking lot at Brookside Campus has been a concern for several years. It's a large parking lot. We have had assessments done and we've also gotten quotes for it. We will do the parking lot work at Brookside Campus because it's one of the top priorities paving-wise throughout the whole district outside of Lyon, which was done last summer. But we also want to make sure that we're not investing all paving funds at one school. So we might look at this plan and say the worst area is Circle Drive or the worst area is Monroe Street. Maybe we can do that one year, do the main parking lot the next year, so we can kind of diversify our needs throughout the whole district because this campus is so large. But anything on that list is subject to change priority-wise based on the collaboration of the planning committee and the building principals. Yes, sir.
Item 2.9, main parking lot, northeast corner, stormwater inlet is full of debris. Looks like that's scheduled for year 6 at a cost of 0. Now, that storm inlet has, who was the principal before Steve Hamlin? I complained about that long ago, and it's just never been dealt with. And you really might want to look at, number one, getting that cleaned and fixed. And if you're going to spend this kind of money on pavement, you probably need storm sewers throughout the parking lot, because when you get a heavy rain, it's just a river, and that just helps deteriorate the asphalt even more. So it might be something to look at. Then on the back side, I see you've got Monroe Street to be done. And this is something, I guess you probably don't have to wait until you do it, but you've got a signage issue there where when you're coming in, it says one way, but then there's a stop sign going out, and we did it as parents for years. You go in and then there's people coming out. You could have a head-on collision in there. So it probably should be a true one-way all the way out to Macquarie.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those comments, and just to reflect and repeat, so Mr. Vukovic brought up the storm drainage concerns. A specific item on the list, and in general, it's an item that needs to be addressed throughout the whole property and multiple properties. One of the things that we are doing when we're talking about paving work is addressing the storm drainage as well. So that whole package, with repaving, redoing parking lots, is your storm drainage, your sidewalks, your curbs. We're also adding ADA accessibility as far as the redesign of those lots. So when our civil engineers look at the parking lots, they're going to be looking at all that. And we might say paving, but when we say paving, we're talking about everything within that scope of work. And they will be redesigned because you mentioned one way in, even though it's deceiving, people come in and go out because of the stop sign. So we'll be redesigning, so when we repave these and we stripe them, hopefully that striping will last for more than a year or two like it does on a deteriorated parking lot. But we're looking at that whole scope of work when we're talking about paving, also the storm drainage. So thank you for that. Yes.
So I'm looking at like item 2.5, main parking lot. You have $500,000 in year 2022, and then another $500,000 more in 2028. Are we doing it in sections or something?
So that would reflect.
You also have repairs to the student parking lot for $325,000. I mean, we're gonna repair $325,000 worth and then rip it up in 2 years?
Yeah, so I would like to, just let me repeat and I'll answer your question. This is a draft document. It's a comprehensive document of things that have been identified over several years, and most of them within the last 3 years. To answer your question about doing it in sections, so that total cost that you mentioned, the $500,000, $500,000, and $300,000, is actually reflective of the last time we got a quote to do the whole property. So when we talk about diversifying the funds and kind of trying to spread it out a little bit so we can hit all of our priority areas, it is realistic. We could do this parking lot in phases, and there are some areas that may just require significant repairs as opposed to full-scale heavy-duty replacement. Monroe Street is a major concern right now for the district because of how it's utilized. You know, we have deliveries back there. That's also how we provide our transportation through PACE. So, so there's a lot of traffic, heavy traffic, outside of what a normal parking lot would get that's on that road. So we're looking at all options. This is a draft document, but we will be shuffling these priorities and we will take out the duplications if there are any when we have the final draft for the review. Okay? Yes. Oh.
Question
Yes.
beyond this building.
Mhm.
Are there any plans for abandoning the old mobile classrooms that were put on in the early 90s that have, I think they had a 20-year life, and I thought when those additions were put on in 2012,
13, yeah.
that those were supposed to be abandoned.
Yeah, so so I'll give a little bit of history on that. His question was the mobile classrooms, the temporary classrooms we have at some of our schools, particularly at the elementary school level. The district did an application around 2002 with the Capital Development Board to add additions in hopes to eliminate those. Population changes and building use changes over the 10-year period when we finally got awarded those funds, that grant fund, was 2012. So we had a need for that space. Those mobile classrooms that you mentioned, yes, they do get inspected by an architect every year. We do have to write up a report with the Lake County Regional Office of Education. They're occupiable, however, they have exceeded their life. So part of this process would be an elimination plan of those mobile units, but with some type of restoration or rebuilding because the space is currently utilized for classrooms for our students. So to answer your question, yes, we have made some repairs as far as mechanical system replacements, siding, flooring, ceiling replacements throughout those mobiles, but ultimately they have exceeded their initial intended life. So they need to be eliminated with this plan, and that is something that has been discussed for years as well.
And kind of along the same area, is there anything in any of these plans for adding more classrooms to the southeast side of the district, where there's always been a lack of, that's, I was on the neighborhood schools committee 15 years ago, and that was the issue, that there weren't enough classrooms there, and everybody gets pushed out. I live a block from Hyde Park School, and at one point there was a plan out there that our home school would be Glenwood, because everything had to go to the southeast.
Okay. Yes. So the question was about building expansion, possibly expanding and adding classrooms like we did with the addition project at schools on the southeast part of town. That's not part of this plan. This plan is part of our existing facilities, updating, modernizing, and improving our existing facilities. This is not, we're not talking about doing another capital development project to add more classrooms, build new schools. That's not part of this plan. This is just existing facilities. Yes, ma'am.
Ever been talk about expanding from the east side to the west side, second floor, because those do not connect? Be another place to, alleviate the amount of traffic with the kids.
Specifically Brookside Campus. So for those of you who don't know the location she's talking about, on the second floor of this building, unlike the first floor, the east and the west side don't connect on the second floor. So you have to go down around the cafeteria area and then go back up. There has been discussion of that. It's not an existing structure. Kind of like the classrooms, it would be a new build. We have dealt with the logistics, the hallway logistics in between passing periods over the years when that section was designed, and we haven't replaced it. So there has been discussion about that, but it hasn't actually physically happened. That's something that with Mr. Briner, we can certainly put on the list and discuss it if it would ultimately help with the traffic flow of the building and enhance some other what's that?
Put other classrooms up there.
Well, we're not talking about adding classrooms, but we should.
Graduate who had,
Yeah.
classes on either side of the building, I would have appreciated.
So yes. So we do need to improve we're talking about the environment, right? The environment, and if somebody has to take an extra 10 minutes to walk to class, that's something that would be part of the plan. Not necessarily the adding the classrooms piece that you mentioned, but just logistically to help out with that traffic flow would be something that would be up for discussion and review. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned 3 parent representatives, and I was just wondering, how are those parent representatives determined? Is communication sent out to parents? How is that determination made as to what parent is a representative in any given committee?
Yeah. So determining what parent representatives we had when we initially started these discussions with the planning committee, we asked the area superintendents. These are the schools that we kind of want to highlight as part of this process. We strategically picked schools that had work done recently so we could kind of show, as people come to the meetings, the work we want to replicate throughout the district. Ask them to speak with their principals and identify parents who would be vested and involved and would want to come out and actively participate in this process, as well as parents who had availability in the evenings to attend meetings and in the mornings, because the planning committee meetings are during the day. So that's how that was determined. We can always have more parents. The 3, all the numbers up there were minimums, so we can always have more. So if you're interested, we can add you to the list. And make sure you have all the communications, and with that, you'll get the documentation, and you'll also get some other notes, the meeting minutes, from these meetings as well as the planning committee meetings.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is glazing?
Window systems, glazing, so replacement of window systems, replacement of sealant. So it would be if we were putting in new window panels or we wanted to update the glazing itself, which would be like the caulking or the rubber glazing. A lot of areas we have old windows, we get a lot of seepage of air in and out, or we might get some water come in and out because they're not sealed or glazed properly. So that's what that means.
Okay, so there's various locations in here where there's different types of projects for glazing.
Mhm.
So those windows have been decided that they are already updated and shouldn't need an updated window, but they should just need a glazing on it? Is that how you determine what needs glazing and what needs replacing?
So not necessarily, because at Webster, we recommended replacing all the windows because similar to that list, she's asking about the glazing components within that list. We had every classroom had some type of glazing work that needed to be done. And we also have old windows. In some locations, we don't have glass, we have Lexan, which is like a plexiglass, and in some locations we do have glass, so it's kind of an inconsistent pattern. So because it was consistent throughout the whole school, we recommended replacing everywhere. So we basically took 30 items and made them one big one.
Right. That's what I was wondering, because I'm seeing a lot of that here. That still needs to be considered as well, though, right?
Yes. And that's, you're gonna see that at a lot of locations throughout the district, a lot of schools.
Also, I see a lot of door adjustments, right? So it looks like some of it is in hallways, some of it is in classrooms. The classrooms I understand more, but in the hallways, and let me know if this is regards to like fire and safety issues, but do we necessarily need those doors? Have you also asked that question? So any doors that needs replacing in the middle of the hallways, do we need them, or can it just be an open avenue, open way?
So a lot of those doors, the question was, do we need doors in the hallways? And you'll see them, some of that work we've already done here. And that's kind of that is a fire safety situation. So we want to isolate sections of the buildings if there isn't a fire. And that is a improvement that needs to be done. The items on this list are recommendations. We're expecting the items on this list to become requirements per life safety code by the next time we do our 10-year survey. But if there's a fire in this building, in this hallway out here, or let me take that back, if it's down the hall by the main office, there are doors, fire-rated doors in the hallway. If our system is operating the way it's supposed to shut down. It's supposed to close and contain that fire in the area it's in so it doesn't rapidly spread throughout the building. And that would allow the people in this part of the building a safe way to get out and contain that fire where it is. So you'll see them where the hallways connect. If you walk through a building, you'll notice double set of door, block this hallway, double set of door, block that hallway. Stairwell as you come down, block that hallway. So yes, we do need those.
And you feel that we have enough ample doors where they're currently placed at today, nothing needs to be put in more additional, or nothing needs to be removed? Has that been discussed?
That's been discussed, and when these buildings were designed, they were designed with that being the code. So they're in the locations they need to be. We just have some dated doors that need to be replaced. That either they may not be functioning properly, or they may be so worn that they've lost their effect.
So just to continue on the door conversation, what I was wondering is, I know some schools are changing their doors to be like bulletproof. And I don't see any of that kind of information in here. Is that in any sort of plan?
Their exterior doors?
Mm-hmm. So like the classrooms, sorry.
Oh, the classroom doors.
Yeah, the classroom doors being bulletproof, for safety measures.
Okay, so the question was, as part of this plan, are we talking about classroom doors being bulletproof? So that's not part of this plan. This is for functionality and life safety, where we're talking about blocking intruders coming in or blocking a fire. This isn't necessarily to make all the classroom doors bulletproof. We did have with the Illinois Emergency Management Agency about 3 years ago a project where we went through multiple schools throughout the district and we put up some hollow metal doors and bulletproof glazing. And we showed that that was a deterrent if somebody came in with a 9mm handgun and they wanted to come into the school and cause disruption. It slowed them down enough for responders to come or for people to vacate an area safely. But as far as classroom doors being specifically bulletproof, that's not part of this plan right now, but anything's up for discussion if we want to go that way as a district. Yes.
There seems to be a bunch of like $40, $50, $100, a couple hundred. Can you just do all those and knock them out? I mean, they seem like they would only take 10, 15 minutes and you're done. But you're leaving them until 4 years, you know, from now, a trip hazard, you know,
Yeah.
adjust the door, close.
So the question was a lot of the small items that are on the list, can we do them now? The answer is we have a lot of items that we do on a daily basis. So some items being done by internal staff, some being done by contractors. So this list that's identified, there's a whole other items related to preventive maintenance services as well as corrective actions or corrective maintenance services that come up on a daily basis that the staff addresses. And the time adds up quickly. So to answer your question, yes, we could do them. We could do them relatively quickly, but we may be jeopardizing other needs that may be more pressing, particularly if we do them with our internal staff. But that, again, is another item where we might be able to consolidate, like the glazing, and say, let's assign 2 staff members for a month and address these items, or let's combine all these items within this school because they're so large and they might equate to 3 or 4 weeks worth of time, and do a contracted service to address the items after hours so we're not disrupting the students. So yes, there's a lot of factors we want to play a part of this, but we've identified all the items on this list, and we'll look to consolidate where we can so that something that might be on year 5, maybe it could be done year 1 or 2.
Back to the trap seating upgrade thing.
Mhm.
So where did you come up with these numbers? Because the seating only was 225,000 or something, right?
So, yes.
And we have 525,000.
So her question was the trap auditorium seating replacement, which we did last year. So initially we were looking at replacement
Okay.
and
So some of these numbers could be
modified.
modified up or down.
Yeah, some of the numbers,
Best guess.
yes, some of the numbers could be modified up or down, but at the time for that particular project, when we were looking at replacement, we were given some estimates that were in that range. So we were looking to do worst case scenario so that we didn't shortchange ourselves when it was done. Yes, sir.
I've got a comment, but it's to the members of the board that are here, but I don't expect an answer because I don't want you to violate the Open Meetings Act. But I noticed that this is one of the superintendent's goals that is mentioned here. But you showed committees and nowhere on there did I see the superintendent involved. So, you know, if that's one of her goals, shouldn't she be involved in this process a little more? I'll leave it at that.
So I don't want to violate the Open Meetings Act either, but I can tell you that the superintendent is aware of this process and is involved.
Another question?
Yes.
So, also I realize there's several areas where they're talking about, items need to be removed because they're being used as, or need to be removed in particular rooms because there's items in there being used as storage, or it's being used as storage. So what does remove mean? Does that mean putting the items, taking those items out of there and properly using them in the district? Or does remove mean tossing everything out?
What,
Like the restroom, there's one.
okay.
There's like a restroom one, there's, I think mechanics rooms, I know I gotta go through and see which one.
So I can give you an example of one that I recall that we addressed last summer at Lion Magnet School, and that was restroom facilities that were not code compliant. Some of the classrooms in the older facilities have individual restrooms within the classroom where they have a single stall. It's not accessible. One of the items that was noted by the architects was, in order for these to be compliant based on these standards, you need to expand the restroom, which wasn't feasible because it was within a classroom, but it was an individual stall bathroom. So it was converted to a storage room, and we made logistical changes with the students and the enrollment within the classroom or within the hallway to provide them the necessary accommodations with that change. So that's a specific item where we're talking about a removal without actually, knocking down walls and doubling the size of a bathroom where we can't physically do it.
Yeah, because we have removed combustible storage, which is 1.39 in the boiler room. Then we got 1.29 and 30 in the fan B room, or remove storage items in mechanical rooms. So I was just wondering, items are being stored there for some saving purpose. What items are they? Are they usable or are they not?
So that's part of the inventory process. The items that we're storing, some we use, some we don't. Some may be seasonal. Some may need to be in an actual storage room as opposed to a mechanical closet. So that's what that part of the list identifies. Go ahead.
Quick question for the boys' locker room, lockers room upgrade. So upgrade, do you have a little bit more information in terms to what that means? Will the lockers be completely replaced?
Yeah.
Really pretty in bad shape or
Yeah. So the question was about locker room upgrades that are identified on the list. So it's a combination. So some of it's a shower area, some of it's the ceiling, the flooring. Lockers that do need to be, some can just simply be repaired as far as like some of the mechanical parts of it, the locks, or they might be missing doors, and some just need to be replaced from scratch. So it's a combination of all these items within the locker rooms that's within that. I know that's kind of a brief description, but it's an assessment based on each locker room between this high school campus as well as the other one. Do any of the planning committee members have anything they would like to add or say?
I'd just like to say that the plan is fluid, so it can change at any point in time, based on necessity or things that pop up. It's not set in concrete.
Yes, the plan is fluid. So when we have an emergency in the district that's a capital expense similar to Oakdale Elementary and the water main failure we had earlier this semester during the winter, we'll need to make adjustments, and we have to address those emergencies, especially if they're related to something that could affect occupancy within the building. Okay? So yes, it's a fluid plan, and there's going to be some shifting year to year to accommodate any emergencies that come up. No, yes.
I'll keep asking away, so you could stop me.
Okay.
No, I was just wondering, I know that this is a lot about repair. We haven't really discussed yet, instead of repairing, if there's something else that we can do in place of. So, for example, talking about Brookside parking lot in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing all of the repaving, knowing that's like a 5-7 year life expectancy, give or take, because of our crazy weather, have we thought about maybe putting a parking garage?
We haven't thought about a parking garage. Now, the question was, well, I just repeated it. putting a parking garage as opposed to repaving. So the heavy duty repaving we're talking about doing, we actually are expecting to get up to 20 years out of. So the work that we did at Lion School last year, where we actually did the storm water work, we did the storm drain work, we made the entrances on the north and south side of the building ADA accessible. We actually dug down a significant depth, 12 to 16 feet, reconstructed everything. So that's beyond repair, that's replacement, full-scale replacement, just like when they installed it several years ago. So we are expecting to get 20, 25, 30 years when we're talking about doing these paving replacements.
Parking garages run $20,000 to $25,000 per space, so it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And they have their issues too with maintenance.
Yeah, we wanna do the reconstruction of all the civil work, all the civil engineering, do the seal coating properly, do the proper maintenance so we can extend the life of these lots.
Right, and because the other concern around here in the community is that there's not enough parking for events that this campus hosts. So that's where I was just thinking also adding additional space, because that's a concern when we're using those fields for that field or even this campus.
That is something that we can incorporate in the plan, because that has come up. We have had to add temporary lots at some school sites in the past. So it sounds like you're asking if you can be on the planning committee. But we have had to add temporary space at other schools, particularly if they're heavily used. So if we have the land space, that's something we can certainly entertain. And actually, we just did it at Waukegan Campus, where the outdoor physical education, the field is. We added parking spaces, about 40 parking spaces there, because we don't have enough parking there. So.
Are you gonna add any to that campus?
So that need, are we going to add any more parking to Waukegan Campus? So that need hasn't been brought up by the building leadership since we added the parking areas this past summer. If it is still a need, we can discuss it and see where we can add it. I know that the PE department was gracious with us as far as modifying their use of that field so we could add that there, because we really didn't have any other land there to add. But if that is a need, we can take note of adding additional spaces there, as long as, you know, our civil engineer says the ground is stable and we can add it and it's permanent like we did the last one. Absolutely.
Thank you, because of course that location has juniors and seniors, and they can't even get parking passes to park there, so they can't drive to school because it's too full.
And that's still an issue. Still an issue. Okay.
They won't give her a parking pass for it.
Okay. Yeah, we can make note of that and assess that with the building leader team. Thank you. Yes.
You said Carmen Buckner had a lot of asbestos abatement, but I'm not seeing any asbestos abatement here. Does that mean that this building doesn't have any of those issues?
That doesn't mean that it doesn't have any asbestos. What that meant at Carmen was that the only way we could get to all the plumbing was to do the abatement. And we decided to expand that scope of work because while we were under containment, you know, it took 3 weeks to set up the containment, 2 weeks to do the abatement, but that was a significant cost within that contract. So while we were under containment, as opposed to pay for it again in future years and do that abatement for the flooring and the insulation, we decided to add it to that scope of work. Asbestos, if it's in the appropriate state and isn't harmed, it's not harmful to the occupants of the space. So unless it is a need and it's failing, it wouldn't be noted on the list.
This ceiling here is pretty much through this building, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Which is odd because you think in the late 50s, when this was built, that it wasn't all blown out of asbestos.
Yeah, this is a majority of the building with the exception of the east end addition. Yeah.
Which there'd be no asbestos there.
No. 90, 89, 90, I believe.
What's that?
Did we still have our asbestos plant when this was built? It surprises me too.
Yeah.
So, any other questions, comments? Committee members, any comments?
Are we live on Facebook right now, or are we just recording?
We are recording, and we will post this. We'll post this with the presentation. Okay. Mhm. Another question. Go ahead.
So, all this work that's been outlined here, our current employees can do everything that's on here, or is there some stuff that, no, our employees can't do, we have to go with outside? Just kind of curious what that looks like.
Yeah, so majority of this we'd be looking to go outside because it's a high volume of work, and a lot of the work we have to condense within the summer weeks, summer months. So, a 10-week period, it's a lot. It's a heavy lift, but we want to make that transformation, and we don't want to affect the classroom environment. So a majority of this work will be combining specifications for bids, we'll be adding it, consolidating, and issue a bid. We may go through this building and say we have 100 doors that need to be replaced or modified. It would take our staff years to do that, particularly if they are trying to do stuff during passing periods or after hours. So we put that in a package, issue bids for contractors and say, hey, you got 10 weeks at Brookside Campus. Here's a list of the doors, the locations, what needs to be done for them. And that's how we can achieve the goal within a realistic time frame, and we can mark that item off the list and move on to the next, so it's still not a lingering issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Curious, thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Well, yes. I will.
You can
Go
stop
ahead.
me anytime. No,
Go ahead.
Building exterior sites, I notice everything is predominantly around like parking and so on and so forth, but I don't see anything in regards to like the fields. Is that because it's gonna be something, a different kind of capital improvement plan, or is that not considered yet?
Yeah. So she asked about the site work, like the exterior and site at the properties. So the exterior and site, we're really trying to address the parking, the sidewalks, as well as the paved playground areas. So that's the field. If you're talking about the fields by the playgrounds, like the grassy fields or the athletic fields, I don't know which you're referring to, but
Or I guess it would be more like, I guess, athletic fields, right? So I don't know how Macquarie Field
Okay.
is, and
so the athletic field
we have
conditions,
Frontier.
yeah, those would need to be added to the list for review. But as part of the exterior site category, we're primarily talking about asphalt, concrete, the paved areas for parking lots and sidewalks.
Playgrounds and bleachers.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, we really, because we do our own lawn maintenance, we don't have significant field issues. The only situation I can recall since I've been here is we had a sinkhole at Waukegan Campus near that field that we had to address. It was unexpected, but outside of that, we maintain our own field. So typically if there's a repair that needs to be done, we address it on the spot. And if it's an athletic field that we're using, we know we have to use in the season, we'll go ahead and do that through our operation and maintenance staff or funds to repair immediately. So, but primarily the exterior site, when we're talking about parking lots, sidewalks, paved playground areas, because we have them throughout the district, that's what we're primarily focusing on in that category, and that's what's been deteriorated. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I want to thank you all for coming. Feel free to take the documents that you have with you. We will post the PowerPoint when we post the video on the district Facebook page, and we'll also work with our Director of Communications, Mr. Nick Alajakis, to get these resources out in other areas that we think are effective for other people to see. All right? All right. Thank you, everyone.